The desperate workers sent a small delegation from Liverpool to London to meet the Airfix directors. In the days since the shutdown, they've occupied the factory. So this will be the first time there's been any discussion between the workforce and the management about the closure. They're hoping for a change of heart, particularly from the chairman, a major shareholder, who has said the company can no longer keep Meccano afloat. The 4-hour meeting was a dismal failure. So where do they go from here?
They never clarified the position. Twice we asked them for their figures on how they arrived to close Meccano, and they never give us it.
The union tried to get more information out of the management, but emerged none the wiser. And there's been no discussion on reopening the factory. They realise just how grim their position is.
Yeah, or it's going to kill the position.
I think we've got to get the 90 days, haven't we, Frank?
The 90 days is the first issue, but once you've got your 90 days...
I think you'll get that information on from now.
Well, we've got to have it, and you've got to have it down, John. It's one of the main things we've got.
In Liverpool, unemployment's double the national level. There are some parts of the city where 18% of the people are out of work. This means that those made redundant often stay jobless for the rest of their lives. So workers here will do anything to save their jobs. That's why the unions occupied the factory from the moment the closure was announced. And this workforce's strongest card is the £4 million worth of stock and plant they're guarding around the clock.
John will run through the report of the meeting.
After 5 days of meetings, the shop chairman has almost lost his voice. So John Lynch, their secretary, reports back to the shop stewards committee.
Very early this morning, so, you know...
They'd pinned a lot of hope on this meeting with Airfix, and this is the first they've heard of its failure.
And furthermore, what we were asking for was our rights to 90 days consultation before any form of redundancy situation.
This 90 days is a key issue. Airfix, with a 43 million turnover, claim exemption from the law. With £50,000 a week losses, they can't afford 90 days consultation.
They maintain, I read in the paper today, that the workforce wouldn't work.
Yeah, but it's, as you said...
And they poured money into this company and it just wasn't viable. Is there any truth in this?
Newspapers are printing reports off the top of the head at the moment without any factual information to back it up. We don't have it, that's why we're being very guarded over the statements that we're currently making.
Well, the problem is here. In the event that we do get the 90 days and Airfix are still adamant that they will not pour money into this company, where do we go from there?
What we've got to continually remind them of and remind the public of, and this is the important thing, to remind the public and the customer, that it is our statutory rights to have the 90 days.
Are there any more?
The stewards are using their right to 90 days as a delaying tactic while they persuade Airfix to try again.
That's it. Well, I'll be late.
Yeah.
So, don't do this here for me.
No.
I don't know how long you're going to be.
Yeah.
Frank Bloor heads the resistance at Meccano. He started there 8 years ago as a forklift truck driver. For the last 4 years, he's been GMWU convener. Now, the whole workforce looks to him to lead the fight to save their jobs. He wants to start up the production lines again, to keep the workforce busy and morale high. For if the occupation disintegrates, not only will they all be without jobs, he believes he, personally, will be marked for life as a troublemaker.
So, what we are asking for now is for you to back the shop steward's mandate for a working starting at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. All those in favour, will you please show your hands? Thank you. All those against? We've got 7. We start tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, working as normal production, right? And keep this thing in mind. This factory is yours. Thank you very much for your support.
So Frank and the shop stewards have carried the meeting with them. For the time being, the workforce is euphoric. A week ago, these lines were shut down forever. Now, under workers' control, they start up again. No one's quite sure whether they're working for Airfix or themselves. What'll happen to the Meccano and Dinky toys they make? The familiar routine is reassuring, but one routine is missing. It's Friday, but there'll be no pay packets today. Average take-home pay is about £60. A week without means real hardship. In those early days, not everyone was kept working. This group was sent to picket a local hotel, where the managing director and his staff had set up an office in exile.
The Holiday Inn! Go to have our dinner. We're going to order our steaks.
Eventually, the executives were asked to leave by an embarrassed hotel management. A small triumph amid growing problems.
Well, I can't.
Come on, girl. The position, as you well know, we're working in. But on the working, I don't want you to kill yourselves. I want you to take it nice and slow and steady. But you're doing this to prove to people throughout this country and the world that you're not the scabby heads that management have painted you to be, the bad guys, can't hit the targets all the while. You're prepared to come in here and do a bit of work for nothing. I'll say this and I'll say this once and I'll say it clear. If you feel you cannot continue with us in here and you want to take your redundancy pay, please feel free to do so. But don't come back to us in the future if we get our rights, because you certainly won't get yours. Your legal position is we're illegally on site. We've got no insurance to cover for accidents. But we want our jobs and we're determined to get them.
But there are setbacks. The worst by far is Social Security's refusal to pay benefit. Frank telephones an official for advice. Ironically, while the workers refuse to be sacked, Social Security says they're not unemployed.
Yeah, what you're saying basically is the Social Security just don't want to know at this particular moment in time. They just don't want to put themselves out, yeah.
There's no prospect of money from any source. A few days later, there's a new mood of grim realism. The union officials request another meeting in London with Airfix. This time, they're prepared to accept the loss of some jobs in exchange for keeping the rest. It was a less optimistic delegation this time, and several hours later, after the meeting, their mood was still gloomy.
Half the clauses are just mumbo-jumbo anyway. I mean, look at three. Three's a cracker. You know, all recognised trade unions of the workforce will enter into an agreement with the company, blah, blah, blah. You know, so under the Employment Protection Act, not go to ACAS. No, that's ridiculous.
The management's made an offer, but they don't think it amounts to much.
That document states 90 days cash.
That gives them full control of the factory.
And that is the end. We've got to give them back the factory so that they can pack orders, make sure the machines are okay, which they are, as we know, because there's nothing gone wrong in that factory since we took it over. To clear out their orders, which they're now piling in from all the toy fairs, right? And leave us standing flat. No factory, no job. Well, a few pennies in your pocket.
That's a no-no.
Well, it's a no-no, but we've got to put that no-no over in the right manner to the people on the shop floor so they're aware of it.
There's only one point that should be put over.
There is no jobs at the end of this, mate.
There's no jobs at the end of this. You've got to fight for jobs, because somewhere along the line, the rot's got to stop. Somebody's got to stand up, got to be counted, and stick out for it. Jobs on Merseyside.
Yeah.
That's what it's got to be. Because if Meccano falls by employers using similar tactics, then it's our fault. It's got to be jobs.
So let's get something
Merseyside. That's what you're
Right,
saying.
so
So
let's
the
get
rest of Merseyside have got a duty to
us.
themselves.
Yeah. We've got a duty to us to ensure that we win the fight so that they don't get put in a position that we've been put in.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
I think it's got to be down to
That's it, yeah.
the 940 jobs, right?
So they'll reject the cash offer. It's compromise, not money they want from the management.
Cup of tea, you drinking a beer?
In Liverpool, the mood of hostility towards management is hardening as the second week of the occupation begins. But the production lines stopped. What's the point of making toys for a management that won't pay them for working? There's been some talk about forming a cooperative, but the idea never got off the ground. They stay put, occupying the factory, though, still solidly united behind the union's refusal to take the 90 days cash and get out. Long-term jobs matter more than even a tempting offer of money.
Heirloom, we might not get any more.
Little laughter at the factory. A handful of workers are owed money from before the closure. So, for the first time in a fortnight, managers are allowed on the premises to distribute back pay. These few workers know that this could well be the last pay packet they'll get in their working lives.
The week in hand, that's the week we worked down. So we worked all that week, what we're entitled to now. We've done a full week's work.
Pickets go to the town hall. Will Liverpool Council help Meccano?
Good evening, I'm Frank Locke of Meccano.
Hello, I'm Richard Kemp from the Liberal Party.
Are you going to support the bill put forward by the Labour group to the council on Wednesday?
Well, I'm not sure of that, but what I do suggest is that I put forward to the council that we should help a workers' cooperative by giving it money and by giving it every assistance.
Promises do not lead to action. The council's got no money to help keep the factory
We're going to
open.
discuss that tonight in our group, and then the group will make a decision tonight. Certainly we'll do everything we can in our power to keep Meccano open.
But is there any hope for Meccano? Aren't Airfix simply facing up to the truth that Meccano doesn't meet its production targets? Last year it fell £1.5 million short. Orders taken just weren't fulfilled. Management blame idleness and absenteeism. The workforce blame antiquated machinery and bad management. Only recently was any major investment made, and much of the cost, £1 million, came from government grants. Will this government step in and rescue Meccano? At the Department of Industry, Junior Minister David Mitchell has to follow Conservative policy, which is not to prop up ailing firms. So he'll make all sorts of noises, but in practice he can't offer any solid help.
Yes.
The introductions are made by the local Liberal MP, David Alton. A Meccano supporter, he must be aware that this meeting's a desperate last throw.
Well, it's a very serious business, this, and one which I'm very concerned about. I'm glad you've come to see me, and we can talk about it upstairs.
The minister offers little except a promise to summon the Airfix management to talks. Back at a room in the House of Commons, the union men and Liverpool MPs discuss what's to be done.
Meccano has had a lot of help from government and is still receiving a lot of aid.
A grant of £787,000 was made payable in March of last year. £210,000 of that was paid. In 1977, of course, they had £1 million in temporary employment subsidies. And I think that the Minister took the point that we were making, that this money has not been invested in the right kind of way, virtually. And in fact, in May of this year, that was the other point that I was impressed by. He said in May of this year that they had actually issued another viability certificate for the future of the firm, which means that Airfix believed at that time that the firm was still viable, or that that money wouldn't have been paid. And the crucial question we must keep pressing, I think, is, well, what has changed between now and then? As I see it, nothing has changed. Their losses are no greater than they were.
But what are the alternatives? Airfix won't compromise. Neither the town hall nor the government will back the workers. Is it time to get tough?
Attack we've got to take, isn't it? The first line of attack is...
Derek Hatton is a local Labour councillor.
...the Stewards Committee right from the word go. And that's the line of attack that's saying that it's putting every bit of pressure you can on the management to change their mind, to force them into giving the 90 days notice, to force them into a position where ultimately they're going to reverse the decision and keep the place open. That's one of the tactics, which is the one that's been spent most of the time. That's the one that's being discussed now. But the other line as well is to accept the reality of the situation and to accept that if that doesn't work, we've got to have some sort of alternative.
One way would be to black the products from Airfix's 9 other factories.
Meccano won't bins road here anymore.
It's a national
the letters have got to go out to all the Labour parties, to all affiliated unions, to, you know, up as far as the TUC if necessary.
That's happening now.
No, it's not.
Frank, why don't you let me loose? Why don't you use my contact?
Get him, Tiger. Yeah.
Why, you know, you're saying to us on the committee, you know, don't black things yet.
No, black him as from now.
I think we've got to black him from now.
Let's get active outside. We're sticking to our own guns here. Let's get active outside.
I mean,
let us get down there. Let us tell them, look,
because we've said right from the
let's
beginning,
destroy
there's
Airfix.
no way.
Airfix twice refused us an interview or any cooperation in making this film. But after unfavourable comment in the press, they finally relented. Ralph Ehrman has run the Airfix group for over 25 years. Backed by the board, the decision to close Meccano was his. Why did they do it?
Because of the continuing and growing losses. In the last 3.5 years, we lost over £5 million in Meccano.
To what extent would you blame the workforce for that closure?
They made a considerable contribution towards it. If the world market had been better for consumer goods and die-cast toys in particular, it would, of course, given us all a better chance.
At the time of the closure, had you already been approached by other manufacturers wanting to buy the names of Meccano and Dinky?
I haven't yet been approached by any manufacturers wanting to buy anything.
Had you already made plans for manufacturing Meccano and Dinky elsewhere in the country?
No. We were committed to making Meccano work, both because we liked the product and we were not interested in closing a plant employing 800 people. We are builders and not breakers up of companies.
You say that you had no plans for manufacturing Meccano Dinky elsewhere. Why, in that case, was there an internal memo in this building at the beginning of December suggesting that just that would happen?
There was no internal memo that I know of in particular. There was a statement by me saying that we intended to maintain the brands and we intend to look for subcontractors, and we are in touch with some now.
And what does that mean? Are you looking for other manufacturers in this country?
We're looking at manufacturers in this country and in others. We're looking to see where we can have it made efficiently, profitably and safely.
Why close Meccano down at 40 minutes' notice when many of the workers had been there for 20 or even 30 years?
We do not deny them the 90 days payment, but we couldn't afford to have the waste of material and the damage which could have arisen if we had acted differently.
What effect has their occupying the factory had upon you?
It's given us a lot of unnecessary publicity.
But it won't give you a change of heart?
I'm afraid not. In ending this, I must say that the thought of many good people who were affected by these disputes really hurts me. Both I and my colleagues have committed a lot to the success of Meccano, and the closure of it is a personal tragedy and a tragedy for all of us in the group.
There's little cheer for the workforce either. Rival toy manufacturers Lesney's are also laying off over 1,000 people. A bid from the Guru Maharishi Yogi is a bizarre last hope, though Airfix say it's unlikely to go through. How much are the workers to blame for what happened? The chairman says considerably. Airfix have openly slated them, but not everyone agrees.
In times of adversity, I've never worked with better people. Sure they're truculent, sure they're difficult, sure they're militant, and sure they're humorous too. But if you behave properly towards them, and that is be straight and honest, and above all, don't sort of back off, and try to earn respect. Once you've got that respect, I got nothing but support from that particular workforce, and therefore I've heard the phrase used that they're unmanageable. That to me is ridiculous. Unmanageable never.
Was the workforce lazy?
I don't believe so, no. Given the tools that they had to work with and the situation, I personally felt that it was okay. Had it been my factory, I would never have closed it for low productivity.
So how much blame for the shutdown of Meccano in Liverpool should be laid at the door of the workforce?
The minority, the smallest part in my view. In my opinion, anyone that's addressing themselves to the problem and saying it's the workforce's fault has missed the point. It is there's a far bigger problem and a far bigger opportunity, and that is in the product itself, the two products, the Dinky and the Meccano products. That is the reason for the decline, not the workforce.
Do you think the workforce has done the right thing by making their stand, staging a sit-in, occupying the factory?
They had no other option. They had no other weapon in their armoury, and they'd either to lie down and play dead or do what they did. And Liverpool being Liverpool and the people being aggressive, which they are, they took exactly what was predictable, the action that was predictable. It certainly wasn't right in terms of the law, but is it morally right to try to fight for your job? You know, we could speculate on that all night.
In 1980, dozens of other factories will close. Thousands more workers will have to fight for their jobs or head for the dole queue. In the gloom of the empty factory, Meccano workers gave Mora, who was due to retire anyway, the traditional send-off.
We love you, boy.